In celebration of Duo Corrin winning the Hero Arises event, everyone will be able to receive a free Duo Corrin from March 10th until April 10th, and I thought what better time than now to make the ultimate guide for Duo Corrin, so that everyone can find a different way to enjoy her. So in this guide, we'll be doing a complete overview of how she works, including builds for her. Then we'll be jumping into team building guides for Light and Astra season for Aether Raids, including an in-depth analysis of all Light and Astra Mythics and how they perform on this team. We'll also be going over her best supports. Next, we'll go into a strategy guide and we'll explain her 2 best strategies in Aether Raids. I'll be breaking down both strategies bit by bit so you can completely understand the best way to use Duo Corrin in Aether Raids. This is a long video, so if there's any specific part of the video you're interested in, go ahead and use the time annotations down below to jump straight to it. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's start with a general overview of Duo Corrin. She is a green mage cav with a 162 BST. She has 38 HP, 50 attack, 44 speed, 19 defense, and 16 resistance with her weapon equipped. Most notably, she has super runes in speed and attack, which is insane. And at max stats, so at plus 10, with a Floret, 5 Cavalry Dragon Flowers, and Summoner support, she can hit 48 HP, 61 attack, 55 speed, 26 defense, and 23 resistance. So as you can see, she's an offensive monster. But what really makes Duo Corrin an exceptional unit is her weapon and her duo skill. Let's go over that. Her weapon, Ninjutsu Scroll, is a 9 might green tome. It grants speed +4 and inflicts defense and resistance -4. Most importantly, if Duo Corrin initiates combat, she attacks twice, and if her speed is greater than foe's speed, she deals damage equal to 70% of difference between stats, a maximum bonus of 7 damage. So essentially this means she has a brave weapon with up to 7 true damage per hit. And in order to secure that 7 true damage, you just need to have 10 more speed than your opponent, which isn't too difficult with a speed stacked unit like Duo Corrin. Next, let's talk about her duo skill, which is also exceptional. It grants unit another action, but only if that unit has engaged in combat already this turn, and it can be done once per map. So essentially this is the most powerful duo skill available at the moment. The only other unit who has it is Ninja Lin as well, so it's kind of been like a Ninja banner exclusive. The combination of her weapon and her duo skill allows Ninja Corrin to dominate Aether Raids maps via hit and run or going all in. The ability to give yourself another action is absolutely insane and makes her one of the most powerful duo units in the game. Now that we have a basic idea of Duo Corrin works and her strengths, let's go ahead and check out some builds for her. Fortunately, Duo Corrin is quite easy to build. She essentially comes with the kit she needs, and all you really need to do is add a reposition and moonbow and you are done, which is very cheap fodder. This budget build is essentially what you're going to be using for hit and run strategy in Aether Raids, and you'll be using a similar build in SDR if you want to use her there, though you might have to change the positional because on certain maps drawback might be better. The next build is her all-in build, so this is for Aether Raids. You can use it in Light or Astra season, and the only real difference here you'll notice is Ardent Sacrifice, and the reason for that is because you're going to be running this build with Winter Burnie. So Winter Burnie is going to be there. She's going to deal 1 damage to all units within 2 spaces, and then on that first turn you're going to set up with Duo Corrin by Ardent Sacrificing 3 times. What this will accomplish is it will allow Duo Corrin to reach Wings of Mercy range, and that way you'll be able to engage, have all your dancers follow up afterwards, and essentially you'll be able to wipe out the enemy team in 1 turn typically. Sometimes you could do it in 2 turns if you want to take advantage of the safety fence, but more often than not you'll be going all in and just completely wiping out the enemy team, and maybe sometimes positioning in such a way that you can block the dancer so that they can't get out and you can grab the pots. The other major difference you're going to notice is Swift Sparrow 3, and the reason for that is because in Aether Raids a lot of times you're going to drop below that 25% HP mark. So if you stick with attack speed push 4, sometimes it won't be active because you'll be at like 1 HP from either like a bolt trap or just from enough engagements, and Swift Sparrow 3 is going to offer that consistency of 6 attack and 7 speed no matter what. Now obviously you can use things like attack speed ideal or attack speed catch if you want to. Attack speed ideal you're going to have a buff, and attack speed catch is going to require the enemies to be 100% HP or have a debuff, which actually can be a bit tricky because if you do hit a lightning trap, sometimes you will lower that HP on the enemies, and unless you have a unit like maybe Air running Tamari, you might not have any debuffs on the enemy team at all. Okay, next let's move on to Furious Ninja build. So this build is essentially similar to the all-in build, but what you're going to be doing is you're going to be getting to that Wings of Mercy range by yourself. So you're not going to be reliant on Winter Burnie at all. So if you don't have Winter Burnie, this is your build you can be using. The problem with this build is you're giving up a lot of attack and speed. So obviously Fury 4 is only 4 attack and speed, while Swiftspear 3 is 6 and 7, and then Blade Session is 9 attack and speed, and Fury 3 is only 3. But what this is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to take chip damage after every combat. You're going to be able to take 14 chip damage. So essentially after one dance, you'll be able to take 28 chip damage, and as long as you are at 56 HP or lower, you will be in that Wings of Mercy range, which will then allow you to once again bring in your dancers and everybody else to finish off the enemy team. The most important thing to note when using this build is to make sure you never go over 56 HP. That means you have to be kind of careful with merges, and you definitely don't ever want to run 4 Mythics because that will ruin it. But you can add like 1 merge and some Dragon Flowers and you'll stay below that 56 HP, which is very, very important. Okay, next let's move on to the ARD builds. So we have a Dark build and an Anima build, and they're pretty much interchangeable. The only difference will be the blessing you are running. So if you want to go pretty budget, you can just run her as she is, but Trace skills are not very good on Aether Raids defense. A lot of times it can remove the pressure that your defense team is supposed to be applying, or sometimes they'll just move into a position where you really don't want them on defense. And so I prefer low speed resistance. It's going to allow Duo Corrin to have that extra power, be able to remove those very common buffs you're going to see on tanks, and allow her to hit a lot harder. Another option you can run is Windsweep, but personally I don't like this because there are so many units now that can take advantage of that. And what do I mean by that? I mean Ascended Fiorm, who obviously has Null C in her weapon, and Ascended Adun, who is not affected by Windsweep. And with how common Duo Corrin is going to be nowadays, I expect to see more of those units on Aether Raids offense. The other major option you can do, as you see on the ARD Anima build, is to run ARD attack speed 4 or 3, either one. And this is going to be a giant power spike for Duo Corrin, as it's going to give 10 attack and 10 speed, which is just absolutely absurd and can let her hurt really, really hard and destroy any tank who's not running like a Hardy Fighter build who can take that first hit or is running Deflect Magic to stop the damage from those doubles. Lastly, we have her Arena build. So while Corrin's BST is quite low, she luckily has that dual skill which puts her BST at 195 for scoring purposes, which is absolutely massive. Essentially it's like one tier below what other units can score, so like Duo Chrom and Duo Dagger now score 200, and then Duo Corrin's right below that at 195. It's still absurdly good and amazing, and if you are planning to pull really heavily on the Hero Rises banner, running an Arena Corrin is definitely a good option, because not only is she extremely powerful, with that duo skill, she can make Arena just a joke essentially. On this build, you're going to run Rally Up Defense, which she comes with, Ruptured Sky because you need that high scoring special, and it will still allow her to proc it more often. Then we have Attack Speed Catch. You can also run Attack Speed Ideal, which we are going to be getting from Divine Codes 3. If you pick up a Luis, which I believe she's like 800 codes, so she's really early in. Personally, I like Attack Speed Ideal a lot in Arena just because you are going to always be running buffs on your team. You always are going to have those rallies, and so it'll be really easy for Corrin to consistently have those buffs and be able to make sure she gets that attack and speed from her A skill. And the rest of her kit is pretty much the same, which means that you don't have to put too much investment to make Duo Corrin an amazing Arena unit. Now that we've gone over all Duo Corrin's builds, let's go ahead and jump into the team building section where we can explain how to make the best Aether Raids teams with Duo Corrin. When it comes to team building, the first thing you need to do is to understand the different slots on the team and the responsibilities each one holds. So the first slot on the team is going to be the carry slot. This is the unit who is going to be doing most of the work for the team. If you're doing like an Omni tank, that would be right here. Or if you're doing like a save ball, this would be one of your save units. But in this situation, it's going to be Duo Corrin, who is going to be sniping and destroying most of the enemy team for us. The next slot is the support slot. So this is going to be the key support unit you need in order to make your strategy work. After that, we have the bonus unit slot. Pretty self-explanatory here. This is where your bonus unit is going to go. Sometimes that will be a bonus mythic though, which is always nice. Next, we have our flex slot. So our flex slot is essentially going to be the slot that either has our third mythic if you're looking for additional scoring, or an additional support. Then we have our 2 mythic slots, which our 2 mythic units are going to be in so that we can score well. Let's go ahead and go through each slot and explain how they work so that people can get a better understanding of how to build a team. Start with the carry slot. So when it comes to Duo Corrin, she has essentially 2 prominent strategies, hit and run and all in. The hit and run strategy is essentially going to be Duo Corrin going up, sniping a unit on turn 1, and then using Vartrace to get back into safety, possibly with the help of a dancer. Then after that, you're going to go ahead and snipe off member by member using dances and to always retreating into a safe area where you won't be hit. The all-in strategy is a bit different. So what you're going to do with Corrin is you're going to get her into that Wings of Mercy range. You're going to have her go in and snipe some of the key opponents and then have dancers follow up and dance Corrin so that she can continue to take out members, and then use her duo skill to take out even more members. Another component to the strategy is often you will use Wings of Mercy Gale Force units to come in to help Corrin clean up. and this is where some of the more powerful mythics can definitely be a big boon to that team. Typically, in order to get pots on this kind of strategy, you are going to lock some kind of unit into a corner and then pick up the pots and then finish off the map. For both strategies, there will be examples where I explain how the strategies work later in the video. For both strategies, some of the common units you're going to want are dancers and a smiter. But for the all-in strategy, you might want a Gale Forcer as well. Okay, so for our support slot for this team, typically you're going to want a dancer here. So there are a lot of amazing dancers that can take up this slot, and we'll go through that when we get to the supports and the mythic analysis. But for right now, I'll also mention that one of the other units that will take up this slot a lot of times on this team will be Winter Bernie, which will allow that all-in build to work at optimal power and consistency. Next, we have the bonus unit slot. So every team is going to need a bonus unit to score optimally. And so you'll either be putting a bonus unit here or a bonus mythic unit if you have that unit available. Whenever you get a chance to use a mythic as a bonus unit, it's always amazing because it will combine two team slots, the mythic slot and the bonus unit, into one slot, which will allow you to have an extra support, which will typically be another dancer, which will make your clears much easier. Next, we have the flex slot, and if you are like a hardcore player like me, you're going to run 3 mythics because that's going to allow you to score better. But if you care a little bit less about score, you can run 2 mythics, and in this slot, you could put another dancer or another support unit, once again making your team stronger. Lastly, you have your 2 mythic slots. You're always going to want 2 mythics so you can score well, and one of these mythics always needs to be a 6 slot mythic on your team. So in light season, that's going to be like Dagger or Euler or Ashe, and in Astra seasons, that's going to be Regan or Elamine or Thor. When building this team, you always want at least 1 dancer. Typically, the more dancers you can get, the better. Another thing to consider is the total amount of actions you can have. The higher the amount, the better. It will give your strategy more flexibility and also give you room to make mistakes and still win. Okay, now that we have a basic idea of how team building works for Aether Raids for Duo Corrin, let's jump to the analysis for the mythic units and explain how well they perform on this team. Before we start the analysis of the light mythic heroes, let's address the 3 most important factors in choosing your mythics. Always factor these 3 things before anything else. First, you need a 6 slot mythic. So if you only have Ashe for light season, she is always going to be on the team no matter what. You're not going to be able to run like Millipede Air. You have to run Ashe to have that 6 slot mythic. Next is your most merged mythics are going to help you score the best. So you're going to always want them on your team. So for my example, I have a +10 Air. So +10 Air is on every team in light season no matter what, because she's going to help with my score. The next factor is bonus unit mythics. So if you have a bonus mythic for that week, that is definitely a big reason to run that unit, even if they aren't like the most optimal mythic on this team. What they're going to let you do is combine 2 slots, the bonus slot and the mythic slot, and add in another support unit that can pick up the slack for that less than optimal mythic. After considering all 3 of those factors, you can then move on to the analysis and choose which mythics are going to be the best for that team. Looking at the infographic, I actually have all the mythics in order from best to worst, in my opinion, though there are some small caveats. So first and foremost, we have Peony, and Peony is by far the best light mythic you're going to be able to have on this team. Not only is she a dancer, she gives the speed mythic buff, which is going to help Corrin ensure that she gets that 10 speed advantage she needs to get the 7 true damage on every hit. After that, she also has the formation buff from when she dances, which is going to allow units to move around and get into better positioning. It helps a ton, I promise. Lastly, she has the attack and speed 3 in cardinal direction buff from her weapon. And this is amazing because attack and speed are the only stats that Duo Corrin really cares about. So not only does Peony give you that speed mythic buff, she's also giving you another attack and speed +3 on top of that. And if you plan out your moves correctly, you can have Peony in such a position where she's helping Corrin from the very beginning of the engagement, and then she can come in and dance with Wings of Mercy and continue to offer that support. It just makes Peony absolutely absurd as a dancer, and she's easily one of the better dancers you can have on this team. That's not even considering that she can give +3 to all stats on the dance, though typically you're going to want to get your buffs from somewhere else because you do want that full 6 or 7 attack and speed buff. Next we have Ashe, and Ashe is amazing on this team. Most importantly, she gives the attack mythic buff. So that extra 3 attack from the mythic buff is actually humongous, because when it comes to brave weapons, the most important stat is attack by a mile. It's not even close how important attack is. It's going to allow you to completely overwhelm tanks that you shouldn't be able to, and it's just phenomenal. And if that wasn't enough though, Ashe offers even more. She has teleportation with her C slot, allowing units to jump around within 2 spaces of her, which can allow dancers to get in where they shouldn't be able to. Typically, it's not going to help so much with the engagement of Corrin, but sometimes it can. Also, that same ski skill, her preference ski skill, also has joint drive attack in it, so it's giving another 4 attack, which is super good. It's absolutely amazing. And if that wasn't enough though, Ashe can actually run a Gale Force build as well, which means that when you get that below 50% HP with Corrin, like in the all-in build, sometimes even in the hit and run build, you'll be able to have Ashe go in and she can Gale Force and destroy some of the more bulky units on their team, because Ashe is actually exceptionally strong as a combat unit. And what makes it even better is that she has that anti-guard effect in her weapon, so even if the unit has guard, a lot of times she's going to still be able to Gale Force. Though that will require her to be transformed, which can be a bit tricky, but with something like Milla on your team, it becomes a lot easier. Next, we have Milla. Milla is the caveat that I was talking about. She either is like the 3rd best mythic in my opinion for this team, or she's much lower depending on what strategy you're using. If you're using the all-in strategy, a lot of times you're either going all-in on turn 1 or turn 2, so you don't really need isolation because you'll be blocking in their dancers so they can't really do anything. But for the hit and run build, Milla is like absolutely amazing. Her isolation allows her to turn off dancers, and not only that, she gives the +2 to all stat buff and an extra turn. Though typically you'll never really need the extra turn. The isolation is what really matters, because what you can do is you can go in and you can hit and run and kill one of their important units and then back up and have the safety fence protect you for that first turn. But then on the second turn, you can go in and snipe some other important unit and have Milla isolate the dancer, so that way they can't really follow up as long as you're out of range. They won't be able to get that dance to extend the range enough to actually hit your units, which is absolutely massive. Without Milla, or sometimes if there's 2 dancers, a lot of times when you're doing those first turn 1 and turn 2 snipe, what you have to do is you have to kill the dancers and then try to far trace out, so that way the team can't get the dance to engage on you. But with Milla, you really only have to kill 1 dancer if they have 2. If not, you can just turn off the dancer and snipe whatever else is going to be annoying, and it makes the strategy just way easier. The only downside of Milla, in all honesty, is that she gives defense as a mythic buff, which really doesn't help this team in the slightest. Next, we have Dagger, and Dagger is another one of those units that's going to enable the 6th slot. She comes with Pathfinder, which can be useful sometimes. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to use, but it can help your supports get into positions where they need to be on like turn 2 or turn 3, so they can do their dancing that they absolutely need to protect Corrin or to pull Corrin out of the danger range. Next, Dagger is an amazing Gale Force unit. She can run a couple different Gale Force builds that are very powerful, and in that all-in build, you can run a Wings of Mercy build, and she can go in and get really deep, destroy a lot of powerful units, and then lock some enemies into corners. The other great thing she does is she soaks Bright Shrines, so you can kind of stack Dagger's attack and speed high enough where she'll always get hit by that Bright Shrine, protecting Corrin from that debuff, because that debuff can be like crippling to Corrin and make her miss a lot of kills. And the best part about that is that Dagger has that like unity effect where the debuffs actually make her stronger. So having her soak chills for you is actually amazing. Once again, the only thing bad about Dagger, she is giving that resistance mythic buff, which really doesn't do much for the team. Next we have Freya, and Freya once again is giving that attack mythic buff, which is very nice, very powerful. She also can run a Gale Force build, though it is a bit difficult to transform. Unless you are running like Ashe and Milla alongside her, then it becomes very easy. And just like Dagger, she can also soak that Bright Shrine. I think she's just a bit worse than Dagger in my opinion. She does struggle a little bit more with the Gale Force than Dagger does, and she also has that transformation clause. After that, we have Euler, and Euler has the speed mythic buff, which is the 2nd best buff after attack, though it is considerably worse in my opinion. Attack is definitely the best stat you can get from a buff, but Corrin does need speed, so it will help her. She can also do a really good job of soaking Bright Shrines because she does come with that Life and Death 4, so she really has high natural visible stats for attack and speed, so she can absorb those shrines for Corrin and protect her from them. But other than that, she doesn't really do much. You can run a Wings of Mercy build on her if you want, so that way she could jump in later on and snipe some units, so that you can continue your all-in assault. But other than that, she honestly doesn't do too much, and so she's typically not the best mythic for this strategy. And lastly, we have Air, the original light mythic, and honestly, Air does not offer the most. You can run a Tamari build, which will lower the attack and speed of your enemy team, which can allow Corrin to get that true damage easier. She also has flying mobility, which is pretty nice for getting pots or destroying structures that are in the way. But she does have sparkling boost, which you're going to need to remove I think, in pretty much every form of the strategy, especially in the all-in, because if you're doing like a Winter Burning strategy and you have Sparkling Boost heal up that Ardent Sacrifice damage, you're gonna cry because you will just immediately lose the match and it will be terrible. And then lastly, she gives the Resistant Mythic buff as well, which really doesn't do much for the team. So unfortunately, Air does not offer too much. The one thing to remember though is that you do need a Smite bot for this team. No matter what, you need at least one Smite bot. So if you have one of these other Mythics who do not perform that well, like Air, like Euler, even Freya to an extent, you can use them as Smite bots and build them to just give buffs via like Link skills and Smite. I would not recommend it for all of them though. I don't like using Smite on Milla personally because you need to have her in the correct position to isolate the Dancer. Okay, let's move on to the Astra Mythic Heroes. Once again, before we start the Mythic Heroes, I want to just reiterate, there are 3 things you have to determine before you pick anything else. You need a 6-slot Mythic, you want to use your most merged Mythics for scoring, and you want the bonus unit Mythics to combine slots. Okay, let's jump into the analysis. So first we have Plumeria, and just like Peony, she is by far the best Mythic for this team. She is a dancer, she offers that speed Mythic buff, which can be nice. She has a dance that can buff plus 3 to all stats while debuffing an enemy within 4 spaces. And she has an attack and res 3 buff that is within 5 rows and 3 columns of herself. So overall, Plumerias can play a pretty similar role to Peony. I would argue Peony's a little bit better, but overall, having a dancer and a Mythic combined in one slot is going to do wonders for the team. Next, we have Regan, and Regan is just absolutely exceptional. She gives the attack Mythic buff, the one we desire the most, and even beyond that, she does so much more. She has Canto 3 for those first couple turns, which can let her go in and destroy buildings, get things out of the way, reposition allies, and then get out of the way herself. She also has Satyr Shell, which is a giant nuke that can take out some of the more difficult enemies that might stop you from regressing in an all-in assault. She can also run a Gale Force build. Personally, I don't like this, but it is an option you can do, and she is pretty good at it. The one thing I would say that makes Regan the most exceptional though is if you're doing an all-in play, what she can do is she can run a Wings of Mercy build. She can teleport in, destroy an enemy directly in front of Corrin, Canto out of the way, and give Corrin that room she needs to breathe and to let other dancers get in to dance her. It's absolutely exceptional. It makes Regan extremely powerful on this team. After her, we have Elamine, and Elamine actually plays an interesting role on this team because typically when you think of Elamine, you're thinking of like more of a defensive team you're using, and you're using False Start to like kind of turn off some of the powerful offensive threats on the enemy team. But in this team, she plays a bit of a different role. So she's going to have that False Start. But with that False Start, what you're going to do is you're going to turn off enemies who are running Hardy Fighter on their save units. Because Corrin can actually struggle quite a bit with those Hardy Fighter builds, especially if they're running Deflect Magic, where she'll just go in and she will not be able to get the kill. But with Elamine, you can turn that off so that they do not get their defensive special on turn 1, and they can allow Corrin to get in there and take out those far save units. Not only that, she does offer the Speed Mythic buff, which is the second best buff. She does have a visible defense and resistance plus 6 buff. It's not really going to do much to be honest, and neither is a 30% damage reduction, but it can be nice maybe in certain situations. After that, we have Thor, who is arguably just as good as Elamine in my opinion. Thor offers that special acceleration, and while typically Corrin won't be able to take advantage of this in a hit and run strategy, she can do it in an all-in build. So the way you build Thor is you use a Gale Force build, but you put Wings of Mercy in her B slot, and after Corrin engages in Wings of Mercy range, Thor can go in, destroy an opponent, activate her own Gale Force, and destroy another opponent, and at the same time, she can be giving special acceleration to Corrin so that she can hit those Moonbows on every other hit. So she'll go with the Brave Weapon, hit, and then Moonbow on every opponent, and can allow her to destroy some of those units she's not able to usually. It also allows, if you're using other Gale Force units, for them to get their special acceleration after Thor goes in, and so you don't have to run things like Heavy Blade or Flashing Blade on your units, and it will allow you to run more powerful seals that can allow you to stack a lot more stats on them. Okay, next we have Altina, and I know a lot of people are thinking like, oh man, here comes the Altina bias, but honestly, Altina is quite good on this team, and the number one reason for that is the Attack Mythic buff. I really don't want to understate how powerful the Attack Mythic buff is. Getting +3 attack, especially if you can stack it with like Regan and Altina, getting 6 attack on Duo Corrin is absolutely massive. It will give her so much more power than she normally would have, and so Altina is actually pretty solid. She can technically do a Gale Force build, and if you're doing it with Thor, she's actually really good because then you don't have to run Heavy Blade. and she can do a lot of damage and really get in there with those brave weapons and get those really powerful kills off while triggering Gale Force. She also has flying mobility, which means she's good at like breaking structures that are like near water or other things like that. And if you don't want to do any of those things, you can also use Altina as a smite bot, which is the way I use her a lot of times in my other teams. And she does an excellent job at that as well. Next, we have Astra. And Astra honestly does not offer much. She has no panic, which would be nice if like Corrin needs to position herself next to a panic manner. She also has the attack and resistance visible buff that she gives out to units around her. But honestly, she's not going to be offering much to this team. You can run like Wings of Mercy on her so she can come in and snipe some things. But other than that, she's not doing much. She also does have that resistant to Mythic buff, which isn't going to help this team at all. And then lastly, we have Naga. And Naga really isn't going to be doing anything on this team in all honesty. She does have that dragon effectiveness, but the only dragons you were going to be running into on defense is Saros, and she's already blue. So usually Corrin just completely smokes her, and a lot of times she doesn't have like distant counter or anything like that. So you'll just get those free 2 hits in and she'll just explode and you won't have to worry about it. So honestly, dragon effectiveness doesn't do much for this team. Flying mobility is always nice. It does let you clear some stuff. It lets you smite from some interesting positions. Not much there. And the defense method buff isn't doing anything. So if you do have a highly invested Naga, I just suggest making a smite bot out of her for this team. Okay, now that we're done with the mythic units, let's go head over to the supports and check out some of the better supports for this team. Before we start the support analysis, I just want to say that there are tons of supports that work on this team. Just because they aren't listed here does not mean they don't work. Almost any dancer can work on this team, especially dancers who can run Gale Force and dance are amazing. Let's go ahead and jump in, and let's start with Harmonica Azura, who I believe is literally the best unit you can have on this team. She is a match made in heaven for Duo Corrin, and luckily for everyone, she's going to be on the AHR banner alongside her, so it's a very good chance you can pick one up. But let's start with the obvious stuff. She's a dancer. Not only that, she has 3 movement, which is absolutely insane. It allows her to dance Corrin directly after an engagement, which other dancers can struggle with. She also has +6 to all stats buff built into her weapon, which is very good. It can allow Corrin to get those buffs she really needs without having to rely on like tactics or link skills or anything like that. But most importantly, Harmonica Azura grants that extra action through her harmonic skill. And the cool thing about it is that it is 2 spaces instead of 1 like Duo Peony, and it only affects Fates and Path of Radiance units, which is actually exceptionally good for this strategy. Because often what can happen with Duo Peony is that you have a lot of units around her, and then she just dances the unit with the highest HP. But with this, if you're not running any other Fates or Path of Radiance units, it will always hit Corrin as long as she's within range, which is typically where you want that extra action to go to. The Harmonic skill also gives Resonant Blades, which gives that 4 attack and speed, which can be very good, though it is often overlooked. So after Harmonica Azura, who is easily the best support, we have Duo Peony, who is also exceptionally good. So she is a dancer just as well, but she has a massive attack steroid in her kit. So essentially what you can do with Duo Peony is that you get that +6 attack in cardinal directions with her weapon, but then she also has joint drive attack, so that's 10 attack right there. Then you can run drive attack in her seal slot, and she has +13 attack just from Duo Peony. And like I was saying earlier, you cannot understate how important attack is on this unit. So being able to get 13 attack from one support is phenomenal. It will just allow Corrin to slice through things like it's butter. If that wasn't enough, she has an extra action built into her duo skill, just like Harmonica Azura. The difference is that you're going to have to be you're going to have to be adjacent to her, and it's also going to hit the person with the highest HP, which can be kind of difficult if Azura is a running attack speed push because she will be losing the HP on every engagement. Also, her dance has that formation buff like normal Peony, so once again offering that extra bit of support. Duo Peony is definitely exceptional, and if you can get her on the team, I definitely recommend it. Next, we have Winter Burnie, and she offers that consistent Wings of Mercy, which is amazing for the all-in strats. Whenever you're playing an all-in strat like Gale Force or this strategy, you really want to be able to always ensure you're hitting that Wings of Mercy target, so that way you can always engage and have people to follow up. And Winter Burnie allows that with the Ardent Sacrifice on Duo Corrin. While that may not seem like much, believe me when I tell you, it is going to be the thing that keeps your strategy working and is going to allow you to consistently beat teams. Not only that, you can run Wings of Mercy on her B slot and she could come in and kill like 1 unit, which is something. It's not bad. It's going to help out a little bit. She definitely has some power. Next, we have Duo Sigurd, and unfortunately, Duo Sigurd is just completely inferior to Harmonic Azura. He does have, dance, he does have the 3 movement, and he has a repositioned duo skill, which I think people sleep on. They think that's, people forget that exists. But honestly, when I use that with Duo Lin, it does work. It lets you just get way farther back than normally possible. It's actually pretty good. But comparing it to Harmonic Azura's duo skill or harmonic skill just isn't really fair. It's obviously just a ton better. But if you don't have Harmonic Azura and you do have Duo Sigurd, don't be afraid to use him. He's definitely going to be able to put in work, and he will be an amazing dancer on your team. After that, we finally have a Brave unit showing up in the form of Brave Marianne. And Brave Marianne is one unit that people just do not understand how good she really is. You have to think of it this way. She's essentially a dancer who can attack and still dance at the same time. That is so exceptionally good. When it comes to teams like this, you need to think about the amount of actions. So the reason why Duo Corrin is so good is because she has 2 actions built into one unit. And the same thing with Harmonic Azura, 2 actions. Same thing with Duo Pini, 2 actions. And same thing with Brave Marianne, 2 actions. So when you start to stack this all up into a team, you can get to a team that has 10 or 11 actions, which is just stupid. It lets you just completely wipe out the enemy team with actions to spare. And so what Brave Marianne does exceptionally well is you run a Wings of Mercy build. She comes in after Corrin engages. She destroys a problematic unit with her extremely high power, and then she dances Corrin, letting Corrin continue on her crusade of destruction. Brave Marianne is always a powerful support in any Gale Force team, and she definitely helps in this team as well. In the Legendary camp, we have Legendary Azura, and she's an amazing unit, as most people know. She did just get her remix, and while it wasn't amazing, it does offer Null Panic, which is pretty strong. It can allow Corrin to sit there under that panic manner and not have to worry about it. She also can give all those stats. With her speed tactic with no requirement, it allows her just to get the speed out, and then she can dance and give the rest of the stats. So that's a really good way to get those necessary buffs you're going to want on the team. And she has flying mobility, which is never to be underestimated. It allows her to get into places that other dancers can't. And sometimes it can help get pots, which can be problematic on every single team. And the final support unit we have is Duo Chrom, and this is a bit of a weird option, but he can be pretty solid. So what he offers is special acceleration. Obviously, whenever he does his preference assist change fate, he's going to not only give that 6 attack buff, he is going to charge Duo Corrin special, which can allow her to proc Moonbow on that first engagement, which is really, really powerful. Not only that, he kind of acts as an alternative smite. And what I mean by that is usually you'll have a smite unit below Duo Corrin, you'll smite her up, and then she'll go in and engage. But with Chrom, what you can do is you can use change fate to put Corrin in the same position, and you won't waste an action because he'll still have that action left, so he can go help out later on. But the only good thing about smite is that you can smite from behind. So if there's a trap directly in front of Duo Corrin, you're not going to be able to do it with Chrom because he'll have to step on that trap, and if it's real, he'll lose his action. And with smite, you don't really have that problem. So there are some downsides to it, but it can be very powerful, and you do get Duo Chrom on your team, which can help you deal with some of the more powerful tanks that Duo Corrin might struggle against. Now that we are done analyzing the mythics and support units, let's head over to the strategies where I can break them apart and show you how to perform them so that you can start winning in Aether Raids with Duo Corrin. First, we'll start off with the hit and run strategy. So let's go ahead and start the video and we can go through bit by bit. The first thing you're going to want to always do is you are going to want to check the unit's builds. So there we go. There's Azura. There is Lilina. Plus 10 Lilina with double Fury and Wind Sweep. Duo Chrom plus 10 with Null Follow-Up. Plus 10 Brave Hector with Far Save and Distant Defense. No Hardy Fighter though. Plus 10 Selena with Wind Sweep and ARD Attack Speed 4. And a plus 3 Mirabilis with a Brave Sword of Wings of Mercy, so she's out for blood. And lastly, plus 3 Saros with NFU and a pre-charged Moonbow. So now that we know the builds, we can kind of figure out what units we need to kill. And so what we need to do is we need to plan out our priority of things to kill. When it comes to this team, the number one thing you want to do is remove duo units. Because if you do not remove the duo units or the duo's hindrance, you cannot use Duo Corrin's duo ability or Harmonic Azura's duo ability, which are very much necessary for the strategy to work. So those are the things you need to notice. This does not mean that you need to kill them first, but you do need to kill them before you run out of actions and you are relying on those duo skills. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I am going to do a hit and run. And what this means is I am relying on the safety fence because it is turn 1 to protect me from getting engaged on by the enemy. And in order to make sure that works, it means I need to be outside the threat range of the enemy team, or I need to be in that first row above my buildings. So I'm going to go ahead in. I'm going to get smited by Altina. And then Corrin is going to completely destroy Brave Hector. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to get Wings of Mercy. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to test both bolt traps. So the first one I'm going to do is with Canto. And this is one of the best things about Fartrace is that it's going to let me back up onto that trap after performing my action, and then I can get danced. So I back up, get danced, stay there, and then Corrin's going to move over, and Corrin is going to get ready for her next turn. So now she is in position to get smited again. And while that's happening, I'm just going to have Plumeria clear up this Panic Manor because there's no reason not to. It's a free kill with Regan there for the Canto and reposition assist. Then we'll have Legendary Azura move a little bit closer just in case she needs to be within range. There goes the safety fence. Okay, so at this point we need to plan out what we're going to do. What units are we going to hit? What order are we going to remove them in? How are we going to dance? This is where the strategy really comes in, and a lot of planning is necessary. So what you are going to notice is that I need to kill both Duo Chrom and Duo Azura to activate my duo abilities. But in order to do that, I need to have my dancers be able to reach. And the only dancer who can reach at the moment is Harmonic Azura with that 3 movement. So what I'm going to do is I am actually going to rely on the Bolt Trap. And while I don't need the Bolt Trap to do a lot of damage, even 10 damage is enough here because after enough actions, Corrin is going to hurt herself and be in that Wings of Mercy range. So let's go ahead and watch. I'm going to go in. I'm going to fight Selena, which puts my HP at 45. And then I'm going to jump on that Lightning Trap. And if that Lightning Trap was 35, or it was 10 damage, I'd be at 35, and I could get 1 dance, go in and attack, dance again, and get into that Wings of Mercy range. But because of the Bolt Trap being so much, I do not need to do that. It lets me dance immediately. And this is what I was still talking about with attack speed push being a problem. So this is my Duo Corrin on the right. She's +1 with plus IV that I got from the trait fruits. And she is running attack speed push 4. And the problem is she's at 1 HP, so she is no longer getting that 7 attack and speed, which is making her weaker. So a lot of times you are going to want to use something other than attack and speed push 4. You can make it work, so don't feel bad if you can't get some premium fodder for her. But if you can, definitely worth the investment. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to kill the first duo unit. And then I am stuck there, right? So I dance with Azura, and she has Trace as well, which is allowing her to move. So what I'm going to do is, because I planned my turn ahead of time, I'm going to move over to the right next to Legendary Azura. And the reason for that is because Harmonic Azura's ability affects Fate units, and Legendary Azura is a Fates unit. So if I need to, I can use her skill and give Legendary Azura another turn, and because she has Wings of Mercy, she can dance over to Duo Corrin. Okay, now we're going to go in, and because I have no more actions left, right? I technically have Plumeria if I need to. I am going to take out this Harmonic Azura, and then I'm going to go from there. So there she is. Now I have access to both of my duo abilities on Duo Corrin and Harmonic Azura. And I'm going to come in and dance with Plumeria. So now Plumeria is open, or now Duo Corrin is there and Plumeria is here. And this is where Regan comes in and really shows off her true worth. Regan's going to come in. She has the Wings of Mercy build, and she's going to just remove Lilina. So this is going to leave room for Corrin to attack, because at the moment, Corrin has no options to attack. Lilina is blocking her attack on Mirabilis, and this Gravity Trap, because we don't know if it's real or not, is blocking the attack option on Saros. So we're going to kill Lilina, and then with Canto, we can even just back right out the way. And then here comes Corrin. Corrin comes in, takes out Mirabilis, and then we can use the duo skill on Corrin, and Corrin kills Saros. And you may notice we still have another action available. We actually have Harmonic Azura's Harmonic ability, which could have activated on Legendary Azura, and we had a whole nother action left. It's actually insane how much we could have done. We could have gotten the pots if we wanted to, but this is just an example. And that is how it is done. Now, this is not something easy to pull off. It takes a lot of planning and practice, but it is a very powerful strategy, and if you want to use Duo Corrin, this is a great way to use her. Let's talk about the all-in strategy. It's a bit different than the hit and run. We're going to use that first turn that we get from the safety fence. Instead of hit and running, we're going to use it to set up. So let's go ahead and watch that as I do the setup. So we're going to have Winter Burnie's effect go off. It's going to deal 1 damage to most of the team. And we're going to have Corrin Ardent Sacrifice there. Altina move into position to smite. We're going to get the dance and do another Ardent Sacrifice. Then we'll do our third Ardent Sacrifice. So now she is in Wings of Mercy range. She's at 24 HP, which is much less than half of 55. And we are set up to go in. Safety Fence protects us. And now we have to plan out our turn. So this is where the strategy comes in. And this is quite difficult. I think this is even more difficult than hit and run because you really need to plan out everything beforehand. Who is going to be killing who, where your dancer is going to be, how are they going to position, and who are you going to block into a corner so that you can get the pots. So if we look at this team, there's a few options, right? You're pretty much looking for ranged units. So you have Mikoto, but in order to block in Mikoto, you'd have to have a unit on her left, on her right, and in front of her. Not easy. You cannot do it to Duo Dorothea because she has to die so we can get the Duo and Harmonic ability working. We can't really do it with Mirabilis. Technically, we can if we can take a hit, but she will hit that unit, so it's a little bit less safe. And then Claude is also very difficult. We need a unit above him on the side and thing. So the easiest unit by far is Mary Ann, where we only need 1 unit on her left and 1 unit below her. So that is the plan. So we're going to go ahead and smite in Corrin. Corrin goes in, and we are going to choose Erica to kill first. And the reason for that is that we need room. And so if you look at the positioning of Corrin, if I would have been to the left to kill Dorothea, and then I had to bring in a dancer, right? I would either have to test this lightning trap to see if it was real or not, which takes time, or I would have been blocked in. So I would have danced where Corrin currently is, and then Corrin would have killed Harmonic Dorothea, but then she wouldn't have been able to do anything else. So by killing from this angle, we have a position open on the right and a position open on the left to dance from. So we're going to do that. Then here comes in Harmonic Azura. Harmonic Azura is going to give us that dance and all those buffs. Very nice. And we are going to remove Dorothea. And what that does is now both of our duo skills are active. Okay, and here comes Regan yet again. So this is Regan once again proving her amazing capabilities. So she's going to come in, she's going to kill Claude, removing one of the units we need to be removed. And then she's going to Kanto right into position next to Mary Ann, blocking her in. So that that Kanto control from Mikoto, that new refine, did absolutely nothing to help here. Okay, then we're going to activate the harmonized ability of Azura. And what that's going to do is just give another action to Corrin. Very easy. Take out Saros like it's nothing. Then we'll have Burnie come in. Burnie will kill Mikoto. And very importantly, notice that she is not in range of Mary Ann's attack. So when this is over, we cannot have anyone below Regan, anyone to the left of Mikoto, or anyone where Corrin currently is, because Mary Ann will attack them, and there's a chance they will die. So we're going to have Burnie come in from the bottom to take out Mikoto. Then we're going to dance Corrin again. Have Corrin kill Mirabilis. And then we can activate that duo ability. And Mary Ann is officially bullied and in the corner. And now you can see the match is essentially won, and we have time to get both pots. Grab one pot Plumeria, grab the other with Regan, and finish the match off with Duo Corrin. And that is how the all-in strategy works. So it's a very, very powerful strategy. It can completely destroy defenses that aren't prepared for it. It can even take out a lot of whale teams. And the best part is, if you do it correctly, you can always get the pots. which can be a very annoying part of Aether Raids. And with that, the guide is coming to a close. This was a massive undertaking, so if you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe, and also share this with your friends who are interested in using Duo Corrin and don't know how to use her yet. If you have any questions at all about Duo Corrin, make sure to drop a comment down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. But also drop a comment down below letting me know how you are going to use your Duo Corrin. I'll catch everyone later with more Fire Emblem Heroes. See you then. Bye.